All right, so Dusty May leaves for the NBA. Now, I feel like a lot of people thought he would eventually make his move to the NBA in about 4 to 5 years after, hopefully winning at least a couple more national championships with Michigan. That doesn't happen. He bolts the NBA after winning his national championship 2 years at Michigan. The landscape of college basketball, of college sports, the whole era of the NIL that we're in is part of the reason why he made the move to the NBA. Now, he's a phenomenal coach, right? Obviously, he just proved that winning the national championship in year two, rebuilding that Michigan basketball organization. Just looking at how creative he is as a basketball mind, it isn't a shock that he made his way to the NBA. So he can really showcase what kind of a coach he is capable of being. I could see coaches like John Shire making that move eventually, potentially Tommy Lloyd. There's a lot of good, you know, maybe not so young coaches, but really good coaches that I can see eventually making that switch to the NBA. College basketball is not as lucrative. Now, granted, their contracts are very lucrative, but the whole having to rebuild your roster every single year, essentially brand new because of the transfer portal. A good chunk of your players are being gutted because they're being poached by other programs. Obviously, there's NBA, right? Even with the fact that the players are getting a lot older, they're not going to the NBA as quick because of the money. But it's just a difficult landscape, just from the standpoint that you don't know what your team's gonna look like year after year. And he got tired of it. I think the nail in the coffin with Dusty May, which I don't know much about his old relationship with the AD. I'm not sure if that was part of the reason why he decided to move on from Michigan. But one of the players they recruited, Juke Harris, was he was in the parade and he verbally committed to Michigan, only for him to have to deal with the agent, and then they just opted for the most money. That's the thing now. All these players are going for the most amount of money. I don't blame them for that. That's just the age that we're in. But now the coaches, obviously, they've been doing this for years. I mean, the the players, the coaches, they're going to do what's best for them. So as a result, you get this kind of thing where players are, they're portaling every year, and coaches, they're going to go for the best opportunity, whether that's to a different or a higher level program within college basketball or to the NBA. I will say the NBA is kind of a different beast. I mean, if you're not successful within the first couple of years, you're fired. Your job security is a lot more in college basketball for sure. You win one national championship, you can lock yourself up in that program for the next 20, 30 years if you so choose to, right? Now, I don't think that the departure of Dusty May to the pros is going to be indicative necessarily to more coaches doing that. I think this is kind of this has always happened. There's always going to be coaches that see initial success and they want to test themselves in the NBA. I think college basketball, there's too much money involved. I mean, these coaches are making, I think, more money than the NBA. So they're, even if it's more work than it was in the past, I mean, they'll rather stay in college just for the money side of things. I'm not necessarily in the camp thinking that, oh, Dusty May shouldn't have left this late into the process. He should have known, because he's been recruiting all these players onto the team for the last 2-3 months since the national championship. But from what I've been told in reports, from what I'm seeing, is that initially this was John Shire's job to lose with the Dallas Mavericks. He elected not to. I think part of it is because he wants to win a national championship first. Same thing like Dusty May. Dusty May has that national championship to his resume, so that made a question a lot easier to answer in terms of, do you want to coach the Dallas Mavericks? Yeah, I've already won the national championship after 2 years. Why not? These coaches have aspirations just like these players. They want to coach in the highest of leagues. Some of them do, at least. And so it seems to me that Dusty May does. But this is really an unavoidable situation. I mean, Michigan couldn't really do anything about it, even if there may have been qualms from the AD which does need to be talked about, but I think it's overstated. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you had coaches that were already had one foot out just because they had already talked about potentially moving to the professionals, like like Jim Harbaugh rather. He's already coached for the Niners. He left after winning it. He just needed that national championship. And same with Dusty May. I think it was kind of a perfect storm. I don't think, you would think that you keep your national championship winning coaches. That didn't end up happening. You'd wish that you'd retain them, but that was kind of a perfect storm. Those are coaches that would eventually have gone to the big leagues there. So it's a seismic shift in college basketball. I mean, that's one less program that I think will make a run at the national title. I think there's really only 3 or 4 teams that realistically can win the championship next year. You never know. You never know which teams could emerge from the shadows. But right off the top of my head, I'm thinking Duke. I'm thinking UConn. I'm thinking obviously Arizona. Maybe a couple more teams might join the fold in terms of contending for a national championship. There's other teams like Arkansas. They're loaded with talent, but who knows if John Calipari will actually bring it together. Texas has a lot of talent going into it. I think they have a shot.